Hey fishing friends, the subject this week is all about blade colors and tail combinations. When do I use what color? I know this is a confusing subject to most people, and there's a real wide variety of answers. And yet, honestly, if you got a bunch of guys together, a bunch of guys and gals in a discussion about this, you're going to probably get a dozen different answers, and none of them are actually, there's no real rule of thumb when to use one color or one blade color, one painted blades over, for example, metallics and stuff like that, loud colors versus more muted colors like this. But here's a couple of things that I do. First of all, let the fish do the talking. So how do you do that? Well, when you're fishing a good area, for example, where you've been catching muskies or in one of your favorite spots, and especially when you're fishing with multiple anglers, throw different colors. And that's one of the best ways to find out if there is a color preference. That is one of the best ways. And here's another thing. When you see that fish are following lures, or somebody's catching more fish than everybody else, that's when you want to test various colors to see if there is indeed one color that's producing better than the other. Now, here's a couple of rules of thumb from in my boat and the way I fish these colors that might help you, and that's really what the subject is all about. Here's a classic example: painted blades versus metallics. In general, I fish painted blades much more in cloudy, overcast conditions. I tend to go to metallics when there is a sun out and there's some kind of a reflective nature that it accents the reflective nature of the blades. Now, does that mean that painted blades won't work in sunny days, or that metallic blades won't work in overcast? The obvious answer to that is no. There's always exceptions, but that's the way I usually fish them. I usually fish metallic blades in sun, painted blades in overcast. That should help you as well. Now, dark traditional colors like black versus loud colors like this fire tiger pattern here, or like this one here, the Elvis, the whites, and here's a white with nickel versus white with with the Elvis kind of pattern that we've been having so much success with here. When do you fish those kind of patterns? When do you go dark? When do you go light? Generally speaking, here's the way I do that as well. I let the fish tell me. That's always first. Okay, so if I'm having success on a certain color, I'll give you a classic example. One of my favorite lakes in northern Wisconsin years ago, Palmer and Tenderfoot. That Palmer in general, and lakes like that have stained water, it was always a white lure, white-bodied lures that caught the most fish. White-bodied blades in particular, white spinners, white Bucher tails, white inline spinners always produce more than anything else, no matter what the conditions. And at the same time, I have fished these lakes not only in northern Wisconsin, but in Canada, where, man, if you weren't fishing black, you just weren't in the game. Here's a classic example of that. Black with an orange blade. It's the Canadian color. When all else fails and you're fishing Canada, when you can't figure out what to throw, you throw black with an orange blade. I mean, that's just a gimme. And more often than not, it works. So that takes you to one last question. One last thing to ponder. So if I have a favorite color and I just put enough time in on it, will I catch fish anyway? The answer is probably yes. Yeah, it's like this Goldilocks style pattern here. It got so hot for a while, and then everybody started buying them. Everybody started fishing them, and it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh man, this Goldilocks is hot. And was it catching fish? Yeah, but because a lot of guys were fishing them, including us, we're catching a lot of fish on it. Fast forward a few years later, we came up with this pattern, Great Flame, and a great nickname for the color. And doesn't look like anything natural, right? It's got grape color. It's got a flame blade, and the flame blade is essentially chartreuse with an orange tip on it. It's a killer. It was a killer pattern. It's been really one of the hottest patterns in northern Wisconsin and Canada, for about 5 or 6 years now. So wrapping it all up, when do I use these colors? When do I use painted blades over metallics? Metallics in sun, paint in overcast, painted blades in overcast, and I tend to fish darker tail patterns. In brighter conditions, I tend to use brighter tail patterns like this in dark overcast and night fishing conditions. And again, are there exceptions? Yeah, there are. But hopefully I helped you out there. If nothing else, you have a lot of fun when you got a lot of different lures and a lot of different colors, and you can throw different things at them. And I'll leave you with one last thing. Is once you're on a good bite, where you're seeing fish and you're going to a spot time and time again, and you're getting follows, and your buddies, you know muskies and pike are there. You know there's fish there. That's when you experiment with different colors, and more often than not, that's when you find out what color they like the best.